You know, in this teaching, which I love and I've been close to and still learning for I don't know, maybe 35 years at least, we talk about the power being within, about God within. And of course, at first, it's kind of oh my God, what does that mean? And I like the sound of it, but how do I do it? And then there's a tendency, I don't know about you, but for me, to have made that kind of a big project. Well, how can I get to God within? And what's that supposed to look like? And what do I do? What are the 5 steps or the 10 steps? Or what's the formula? How do I do this? And the longer I am around these beautiful teachings, these beautiful spiritual principles, the more I realize it's what Bob's saying. It's like going home within. That's all. It's not complicated. It's not a big, heavy-duty project. The only difficult part, of course, is we can forget. We've got to kind of find our way back. We forget that it's there, but it's just that place of home, deep within. So, home can be a place. Home can be a feeling. You know, some sayings that have endured the test of time. Home is where the heart is. Anywhere I hang my hat is home. Remember those little samplers, old-fashioned samplers, would be cross-stitching on them that would say, home sweet home, be it ever so humble, there's no place like home. And that's the title of today's message. Our whole theme this month is, of course, what is the theme? I want to say it in the right way. I know what it is, but come home to the love. Come home to the love. And the message today is there's no place like home. And the reason I wanted to talk about it is, as I started out, what I just said about it not being so complicated. It's there all along. But I'd like to invite you this morning to explore the healing experience of finding that inner home, that place within. And it's a personal healing and it's a spiritual healing. And by healing, I don't mean you're flawed, sick, broken. I just mean a discovery of your wholeness, personally and spiritually. And you know, one of the things I love about this teaching, too, is that we're always reminded to discover that it's about discovering and expressing our possibilities, that they're endless, that our potential is infinite. It's fueled by that Creator that made us out of itself, that is infinite. And this teaching keeps reminding us that for us, there is a life that's fulfilling and rich as we expand into our potential as individuals. I mean, that is the message we keep being reminded of. And of course, for a lot of us, that wasn't how we grew up. In our earlier traditions, we were not taught that it's there for you. Grow and evolve into all the possibilities that await you as an individual. We learn this now in Science of Mind teachings and New Thought, and I love it. That is a great incentive. So what in the world could all of that have to do with there's no place like home? I mean, don't we generally prefer, there's no place like my next big adventure or my next big accomplishment, or there's no place like my next big acquisition. That's kind of how we seem to be wired. And, of course, those are great, wonderful things, those experiences, but they can also be distracting. And by that I mean we can get distracted by these external enticements and promises about something more and more fulfilling and better and bigger and shinier right around the corner. And the eventual result is so often short-term results, disappointment, or even discouragement and even weariness of chasing the one more thing, the bigger, the better, the shinier. Well, what happens and why is that? Well, why don't they give us what we think they're going to? Well, as wonderful as they may seem, they're not the source of the deep satisfaction and the fulfillment and the personal evolution that we're seeking. And believe me, that's what's behind all the things that we pursue is a deeper desire. We may not articulate it that way, but the deep desire is always for a life that's more fulfilling, that is satisfying, that is a personal unfolding of our uniqueness. But we kind of get it shaped into a thing, an event, an accomplishment, an acquisition. So, I don't know about you, but I need a reminder to return home every now and then. I do. And it was expressed so beautifully in Bob's song, where he said, ultimately, the only home is the one right in our hearts, right in our hearts. Now, by home, I mean something like Oriah Mountain Dreamer wrote. Remember, she is still a beautiful poet, Oriah Mountain Dreamer. And she wrote 2 books that I have. One is called The Invitation, and one is called The Dance, and many of you may have that or may have read those. Anyway, what she said is, in the moments when we come home to ourselves, there is no fear, because we know what we belong to, and we know what belongs to us. When we come home to ourselves, there is no fear. And Dr. Ernest Holmes, the architect of our philosophy, of our teaching, described it this way. He said, there's a pattern of your being, the real spirit of you, which is eternal, and it's seeking to manifest through you. This is about coming home to our God self, whatever name you want to call it, our essential nature, our God self. So if this is so terrific and wonderful and good, why do we forget about our home base and fades into the background? Well, you know, as children, when we're really young, we know we're limitless. It's so fun to watch kids as they experiment and they question and they fearlessly learn to crawl and sit and stand and fall down and then walk and run and fall down, and they just keep on fearlessly. They know they're without limit. That's how they know what we lose sight of. And soon, of course, in so many ways, they're told, you got some limits. It may not even be in words, it may not be intentionally that we do this. But over time, we lose touch with that inner knowing of limitlessness, of home, of the home base, that it's not out there, it's in here. And then Madison Avenue to the rescue, of course. Toys and entertainment, and we're often running in our lives more, from the time we're children on up. Always something out there, something from the material world, because it's tangible and it's. We're in as Deepak Chopra used to call it, the superstition of materialism. That's the reality, we think, is that stuff that we can see, touch, taste, feel. It's with our 5 senses. And then as time goes on, we develop this underlying sense of not enough. I'm not enough. There's not enough. Sound familiar? If you think about anything that's going on in your life that may be really getting you down or really challenging you, not that challenges are bad, but it's important to identify what is my internal message. And I'm usually telling myself, there's not enough, I'm not enough, it's not enough. And all of that is fueled by FOMO. You know what FOMO is now, the syndrome of FOMO, fear of missing out, FOMO. And you add to that the endless self-help programs, techniques. Oh my goodness, every day I get emails about yet another approach. Now, those, I'm not criticizing those, many of them are very good and very useful. But it's outside. So much of it is coming, again, from the outside. And then life happens. Life happens and some really big storm hits us. We're hit hard. We're spun around, and there's so much we can't control. And we find that maybe we're awash in uncertainty and fear, and we're frantically looking around for a solution, a rescue, help, something. Or life may be happening in slow dribs and drabs of same old, and we find we're weary from that We're searching and we're yearning, but we're still hungry. So that reminded me of that wonderful fable, The Wizard of Oz. And I'm not going to go through the whole story because I'm pretty sure most of you know it or get the book, get the movie. But this particularly reminds me of the plight of Dorothy. She was swept up in that cyclone, that big storm. And when she landed, she didn't know where she was. And she wanted one thing. She wanted to go back home. And then to her relief, she learned that there was this wise and powerful wizard who could get her back to her home in Kansas. Problem solved. Of course, she had to find the wizard. Oh, well, that's easy. Just follow the yellow brick road. Now, don't we do that? How many times have we set off down a yellow brick road thinking, this is where I'm going to find my fulfillment, my solution, my whatever I am seeking? The enticements, the promises, it's all out there. We follow that yellow brick road. So Dorothy did that. And, of course, along the way, she picked up 3 friends. You remember the Scarecrow? And he was the one who wanted to have a brain. Tin Man wanted to have a heart. And the lion, of course, wanted courage. Wasn't that like us? Come to think of it. How many times have you wished your mind could figure out something? You could come up with the right solution, the right answer. You're going through all these mental gymnastics. Okay, I'm going to say that's like the Scarecrow wanting a brain. Or in a difficult relationship situation, haven't you wanted to have an open heart? Like the Tin Man wanted a heart. We want that love that seems to be eluding us in some relationships, some situations. Or, of course, courage. Who doesn't find themselves in a situation maybe once in life? Give me courage, give me strength, give me the whatever it takes to get through this because I'm terrified. So there they are, representatives of you and me. So the story, of course, is about these 3 plus Dorothy and their arduous journey trying to find the promised wizard who would give them what they wanted desperately. Well, they finally arrived. They found the wizard, only to discover, to their huge disappointment, that the wizard was just this puny, frightened, scrawny bully, clueless, and totally unable to give them what they wanted. Now, sidebar here, in our lives, sometimes we will get to that point. Oh, it's not what I want. I thought you'd have the answer. I thought this would be the answer. I thought I found it, and it's not. And a lot of times the human tendency is just end the story right there in despair and discouragement, and I guess there's no hope. But fortunately, in the story, that wasn't the end. Spoiler alert, in case you don't happen to know the story. Dorothy and her friends found exactly what they were seeking, and they already had it. They already had it within them. Of course, Dorothy had to do one thing, click her ruby red. I tried to find some ruby red slippers to wear today, but just couldn't find them, so next time. All she had to do was click the heels, and she was instantly home, where, of course, she proclaimed, there's no place like home. No place like home. Now, that story speaks to the truth and the power of going home, of going within. That's the whole story, is go within to discover the inner source of whatever you need, whatever I need. But that can be kind of tricky because, again, the journey within is kind of intangible, isn't it? It's not externally visible, and it's not an object, it's not a person, it's not a system. So it's kind of a subtle journey at first. But I love what Oriah Mountain Dreamer said again, and she was describing it. See if you can relate to this. She said, I want to know what sustains you from the inside out when all else falls away. All of it. What sustains you? That is that place of home within. And remember, she said, in the moments when we come home to ourselves, there is no fear, because we know that what we belong to and what belongs to us. So in that place when we say, what is it in me that sustains me when all else falls away? Okay, first reaction might be, it's scary. But she's reminding us, no, when we really come home to ourselves, there is no fear. Dr. Ernest Holmes put it this way. He said, there is something within you that is beyond all doubt and fear. Back of it all is the will and the purpose of the universe, longing to live life more fully. And this perfect pattern, he says, is where you are and not somewhere else. It's here. It's in us. God in you as you. So you might be wondering, okay, I like this idea. I think I get it. But how? How do I return home to that source inside? Well, I'm not saying that I have the exact journey for you, but let me suggest something. You can keep your eyes open or closed, but I'd like you to recall a time when you felt unconditional love, when you felt it embracing you, maybe from a grandparent, from a pet, with your newborn baby, maybe from a beloved friend, from your beloved spouse. Capture that sense of feeling it coming toward you and also from you. As you remember and feel that unconditional love, I would like to say that is what home feels like. That's home. As Bob's song said, let love lead you home. Now, hold that feeling tone of being loved unconditionally and reflect on these words, again from Uriah Mountain Dreamer. What if the essence of who you are and always have been is enough? What if the fulfillment of your happiness is not dependent upon discovering a better method of prayer or a technique of meditation or reading the right book or attending the right seminar, but upon really seeing and deeply appreciating yourself as you are right now? And she goes on, she says, what if the question is not, why am I so infrequently not the person I want to be? But the question is, why do I so infrequently want to be the person I really am? Why do I so infrequently want to be the person that I really am? She continues by saying, don't tell me how wonderful things will be someday. Show me that you can risk being completely at peace, truly okay with the way things are and the way you are right now in this moment. And again in the next, and the next, and the next. That is home. That is home. Home is where the love is, and the love lives in your heart, in my heart. I'd like you to think about that this week from time to time when you catch yourself in a frenzy. Generally, it's because there's a sense of I'm not enough, there's not enough, and what's going on outside. And go home within. It is so refreshing, and it feels so just like going to if you don't have a perfect home in your memory, like going to the ideal home. So I'm going to wrap this up with a little example from my life. 40 years ago, I was addicted to pills and alcohol, and I had been for about 15 years, and it was getting really messy, and I had hit my bottom. I was at the end of the road and had agreed to check into rehab. And the arrangements were all made, and the day before, my husband Erwin and I went to see a movie. You know, I was in such a fog, but just, give me some way to escape. I was feeling desolate. If any of you know addiction or know someone who is in that spiral, that downward spiral, there are not even enough words to describe it. Desolate and beyond discouraged, I felt hopeless and terrified. So the movie we went to see was The Wiz. Now, that is the musical version of The Wizard of Oz, and it stars Diana Ross. It was divine providence that we chose that movie, I'm sure. Because I was like Dorothy. I mean, I had followed that yellow brick road in all kinds of directions, and for me, finally, the yellow brick road was just give me another drink, give me another pill. That was kind of it. And when you're on that yellow brick road, you're in search of something, and then it's in search of anything, and then in search of numbing escape. Pretty exciting situation, huh? So I knew I was feeling lost, and I was feeling confused and desperate to go home, but I wouldn't have articulated it that way. I was desperate for something sure and safe and clear, and of course I didn't know how to get there. I just knew that I was at the end of my road, had no particular happy thoughts about what might be next, even if I did go to rehab, which I did. So I couldn't have articulated this yearning for home, but there were two songs in that movie that said it for me, that put it into words for me, so that I sat there and just wept during both of them. Now, Bob is going to sing one of them for us in closing, but these are the words of another one, and they're about going home, of course. When I think of home, I think of a place where there's love overflowing. I wish I were home. I wish I was back there with the things I've been knowing. Maybe there's a way for me to go back now that I have some direction. I was thinking, well, maybe. And just maybe I can convince time to slow up, giving me enough time in my life to grow up and let me start again. Suddenly my world is gone, but I still know where I'm going. There was something in me, and that's that something that never leaves us. Even when, my mind was foggy, my body was foggy, with all of the substance abuse, there. But something in me it'll never let you go. It's there, and that was that place of home. And there was just this little flicker that somehow I was returning home. Now, I can tell you it took a long time, but that was the first glimmer and the first step of discovering that which had been there all along. So as I said, I did ask Bob to sing that other song from the movie, and as you listen, I want you to take the message for yourself, too, because wherever you are, you don't have to be sinking down into the place where I was. You can be wherever on your journey and find that flicker inside of home, and you could go there. You don't have to be a good person. You don't have to pass any tests. You don't have to do any mea culpas. You just go there. Just recognize it. And so I'm going to close with what Dr. Ernest Holmes said again about it. He said, "There is something in me that is making everything in my life simple, effective, and whole. There is something in me that is arranging every circumstance so that success and happiness will come from it. This is the invisible partner in my life. divine love that goes before me and prepares the way. And I have a deep sense of inner calm that all is well. Namaste. No place like home. Thank you.